Great to see everybody. I would like you to start taking a seat. We're running a little bit behind already. We have a fantastic program this morning. There's some other tables that are being set up in the front in case you can't find a seat. If you're one of those front row kind of people. Well, great. Well, thank you everybody for coming this morning. I think this is going to be a great program. Before we get started, I'd like to ask Juliana if she would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, March is Women's History Month. And the Sonoma County Alliance began celebrating Diversity Month 2 years ago at the suggestion of some of our board members and as a member benefit. In honor of and to celebrate Women's History Month here at the Sonoma County Alliance, your DEI committee has created a video based on interviews with several Sonoma County business owners, nonprofit leaders, and elected officials with a focus on leadership. Sonoma County is rich from the work of many women leaders who have preceded us. For example, from a recent Press Democrat article, Latina social activist Maria Rifo, Eddie Mae Sloan, a leader in the war on poverty efforts in Sonoma County, San Juan Borbo, a restaurateur and philanthropist in Santa Rosa, Elsie Allen, Homo basket weaver and namesake for Elsie Allen High School, and Helen Putnam, who I believe is the county's first mayor in 1966 in the city of Petaluma. So we hope that you enjoy this video. Thank you.
I think some of the most inspiring women in leadership are those who lift others up. And I've been fortunate to have many mentors throughout my life. One of the things that they taught me is that my perspective and my lived experiences are valuable. It can be tough and intimidating to put yourself out there, whether it's co-chairing a committee or doing something in the community that is a leadership role. I think it's just so critical and important to create safe spaces so that women can step up into these leadership roles.
I believe we need strong, competent, thoughtful, and compassionate leadership. And each of us has our own unique gifts to bring to the world. Because of my upbringing, I often doubted myself and I held myself back. And I did years of personal growth work to get to the place that I knew what my own voice was. And I knew how to bring that to my community. And so my encouragement to other women is to do what it takes. Find your voice, find your light, and then bring it and shine.
Thank you. This morning our breakfast sponsor is PEP Housing. Thank you, PEP, for your continued support of Sonoma County Alliance. And now I'd like to introduce Roy Martinez, a board member of PEP and member of the Alliance, who is going to introduce the speaker for PEP this morning.
I'm Roy Martinez. I'm with Exit Strategies in Petaluma. We're a lower middle market M&A firm. I've been a member of the Sonoma County Alliance for I don't know how many years, and last month I heard of what the program was going to be, and I'm also a board member of PEP Housing, and I jumped all over it. I said, let's get PEP in front of everybody before all the other speakers. PEP Housing has over 600 senior housing units and at least 24 homeless units that are designated for homeless people here in Sonoma County. And so I'd like to introduce Jim Wallen to talk about it. Jim is the Director of Development. All right.
here playing golf, if I was downtown or at one of your houses for dinner, we'd say,
Your mic is on.
What is Pep Housing? What is Pep Housing? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Hey, you want me to try it again? Yeah. Jim Wallen, Director of Development for Pep Housing. So what I said before was, good morning. And the most important part is, in this little short 3 minutes that I get here today, is I want to answer the question, what is Pep Housing? Well, Pep Housing is a 45-year organization that is a nonprofit that started over a cup of coffee. That two community leaders decided they were appalled by the homelessness in their community. They were staying in storage units and tents without water or anything like that. So what they did is they started this volunteer group, and Pep Housing rose at 1978. That was 45 years ago. So let's run to fast forward to today. As a developer manager, we have 20 affordable low-income properties, housing over 700 low-income seniors, senior veterans, and unhoused seniors, with our average tenancy throughout our portfolio to be more than a decade. And our longest resident has been with us for 3 decades. With the topic today, I'd like to leave you with some data from PEP. Average status of being unhoused is greater than 24 months when they come to us. That is a long tenancy when you think about someone being unhoused of 24 months or more, and they walk in to a unit that is vacant. What do they have? And that's what the people like COTS and Catholic Charities, that's what that partnership is for, is to take that step. I can build apartments all day long, but that next step has to be done to make this successful. The average status of being unhoused is greater than 24 months at PEP. And PEP is serving Petaluma, our newest River City senior apartments, where we have 34 unhoused individuals calling it home with 54 total residents. PEP is serving Santa Rosa. We started our newest project in Santa Rosa. If we all know where the Scottish Rite building is, we repurposed that into 26 units. So we're taking properties and repurposing them and putting the unhoused into those. It's very unique and a easier and quicker way to get the units on heads and beds. So in Ukiah, we have 10 residents that have been there. They are veterans. They've been there for over 5 years. So to take the unhoused and have a lengthy residency is our goal. But once again, we can only do that with the partnerships of COTS, Catholic Charities, cities, housing authorities, and others. Today's issues that the panelists will be discussing are monumental. That's why we're here today, and we discuss this all the time. But as a developer, we need partnerships, like I mentioned, to assist us with all the back-end needs of these individuals as we provide a safe place to call home. Some of these residents for the first time in decades. The other day I had an individual tell me that she hasn't been in an apartment for over 20 years, that she was so happy that we built River City, and she slept in her car the last 5 years. She's in a pusher, and she has serious handicap issues. Now when they move into PEP Housing, PEP has a residential coordinator that takes over. That coordinator and property manager are there all the time. VA has their individuals come in. But those are the back-end needs. We can build the apartments, but what I want to leave you with is this is a 3-prong approach, and it needs to be looked at from all 3 prongs. Building the apartment is one thing. but putting them in unhealthy is not the solution. So we need to have the services to back that individual up, to go and say, hey, we gotta go get a couch for you. We spent the last 3 weeks, the executive director, I want to call her CEO, look at you. The executive director has spent the last 3 weekends buying furniture for the homeless, so that they walk in and they have a couch, and somebody explains to them that this is their pots and pans, that they don't have to go to that community room that was completely full and take from there to bring it to their units. I've completely gone off script, but I'm going to tell you what's real and what's happening today with the developer and with the providers behind us. And the PEP housing is just a cog in a very big wheel. But today, you're going to hear from some of the best. We enjoy working with them all. We enjoy working with all of you later. Thank you.
Thank you. That's housing. And then I'd just like to make some quick announcements and thank yous before we get started with our introductions. I want to thank you, Don Mills and Alejandro, for sound ideas for our video. Thank you to Danny Sheehan, Don Mills, and Ryan Kelly for organizing and hosting our first very super fun Biz and Fizz last Thursday at Cuvier Brewery. Please remember to pre-register for our GMMs, even if you have prepaid for the year. And then Ty, do you have a couple of comments?
Sure.
Yeah. You want to come up and make some announcements? And then we'll do our introductions.
Perfect. I'll be speedy as like.
Thank you.
All right, good morning. Like I mentioned, I'll be really quick here. This year we have a goal to have an event every single month. That is a networking event outside of the GMM. So I want to highlight some of the ones that we have up and coming. We have the legislative reception this month on the 23rd. That is going to be a great opportunity to rub elbows with some elected officials and thank them for their tireless efforts. Those tickets are available now online, so go ahead and visit our website to register. The last Biz and Fizz was awesome. Thank you, Danny Sheehan, Don Mills, and Ryan Kelly for sponsoring. Our next one is June. We also have our June 10th Bocce for Books. This is a fundraiser for our education committee, which just put in 2 book vending machines at 2 low-income schools in Sonoma County. Come help us raise more money and do more important work. On that note, join a committee. We have a ton of committees: education, environmental, water supply, membership programs. They're unlimited, and if there's one you want, I'll add it. But it's important that we have diverse groups of voices to come together to move the Alliance objective forward. So April 5th is our next GMM, and we have a State of Education with Dr. Carter. We're going to be inviting some students and hopefully some other superintendents to come and participate in the discussion. So you could pre-register for that on our website as well. And then of course, if you want to maximize your membership, there are a million ways to do it through sponsorship. PEP Housing did a great job today. Thank you for coming and sponsoring. Get your name out here, get 3 minutes at the podium, bring some guests, and introduce them to the Alliance. We also have smaller opportunities if you want to highlight an event or a board that you sit on or a nonprofit that you are passionate about. You could do a pop-up sponsorship as well. So all these opportunities are available. Just shoot me an email and I'm happy to walk you through them. ty@sonomacounty.com. I'm done.
Okay, good morning, everybody. We're going to do our introduction. So I'm going to start with the head table here. If everybody would stand up. My name is Janet Connors. I am a commercial real estate lender with Summit State Bank, and I have several guests here today. I'm just going to skip around. I have Gerard Judiche from the City of Rohnert Park, Jenna Garcia from the City of Rohnert Park, Chris Cabral from COTS, and Aaron Curter from COTS. And then I'm going to hand the mic over to me.
Good morning, Mick Menendez, Pacific Advisors. I have 2 guests this morning. First, Communication Manager for the county, Mr. Paul Gullickson. Welcome, Paul. And the Press Democrat, Sonoma Media Editorial Director, Jim Sweeney.
And I'm Hugh Futrell Corp, builder developers and asset managers.
You guys ready?
Chris Wilson with the Historic Railroad Square Association.
Cameron Vance with Kavanaugh Investments, guest of Paul Yeoman's Exchange Bank today.
Linda Bone, Summit State Bank, Training and Development.
Teresa Scott with Western Health Advantage.
Good morning, Lori Rooney, North Bay Biz Magazine.
Tom Sweatham, recovering local elected official.
Jenny Lynn Holmes with Catholic Charities.
Kyle Mulrath, Pet Housing.
I'm taking the mic.
Bob Harder, Civil Engineer.
John Cregan, Santa Rosa Chief of Police.
I'd like to introduce our Santa Rosa City Manager, Mayor Keisha Smith. Welcome. Ross Liston, Sector 21 Epic.
Good morning, Greg Hurt, BKF Engineers.
Artie Dexter, Leduc and Dexter and Super Service Plumbing.
Pete Leskier, Leskier Engineers. Dick Dowd, past president of the Alliance and retired.
Tony Alvarez, past president, retired.
Hello, Rebecca Kendall, Chief Philanthropy Officer with Santa Rosa Memorial Hospital Foundation. And I'm not new, but haven't been here in a long time.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. I'm Janie Reed, and I am a Senior Sales Coordinator with the Juice Plus Company, and I'm the former Administrator down at Petaluma Valley and the COO at the Petaluma House Center. Glad to be here again.
Good morning, Katie Hillenmeyer, Providence Santa Rosa Memorial Hospital. Jane and Rebecca are my guests.
Joe Gaffney, St. Vincent de Paul.
Steve Berlebauer with Friends of Smart.
Rob Sandville, KLH Consulting, and I am a member of the advisory committee here.
Juliana Graham, Wells Fargo Bank, and board member.
Sloan Shen, Pepperwood Preserve.
Jim Wallen, Pep Housing.
Good morning, Gary Lenz with Loan Depot.
Morning, Aaron Smith with Adobe Associates.
Chuck Root, Double Eagle Financial, where cash is still king.
Rick Carlisle, BKF Engineers.
Ryan Kelly, WSI, Embrace Digital, Stay Human.
Victor McKnight, Interwestern Truck Services.
Roy Martinez, Exit Strategies Group, and I have a guest today, Sean Pryden. He's from Wells Fargo Advisors, and he's the chair of the board at PEP Housing.
Good morning, Anna Tamayo with the Office of Assembly Member David Connolly.
Brendan Sweeney, Congressman Mike Thompson's office. Thomas Roberts, Wells Fargo. Frank Pipp, Gress, Commercial Real Estate.
If you are a guest, please give Chris your business card for a drawing.
My name is Brent Hancock. I'm with Exchange Bank. I'm a commercial relationship manager in the real estate construction group, and I'm a guest at Paul Yeoman's.
Dan Conklin, member of SCAPAC.
John McHugh, Primerica Financial Solutions for Families. Don Tomasi, TLCD Architecture.
Jen Collini, recruiter at Leap Solutions.
Scott Kincaid, Facility Development Company and Chair of the Sonoma County Alliance Political Action Committee.
Good morning, Kim August, the Summit State Bank.
Good morning, Howard Dalton. I have two guests this morning. My nephew is here with us for the second time, Will Daniels with Daniels Chapel of the Roses, succession plan. And if you'll stand up over here, this is my son that I'm so proud to introduce. This is Clay Dalton. And Clay just, on December 6th, he opened his new business after 3 real intensive years in acupuncture and Chinese herbal medicine. And so he now has Dalton Wellness on Montgomery Drive. Nice to have you here. I'm proud of you.
Thanks, Howard. That's inspiring. Kevin Zuko, DFA Short Measures.
Michelle Boone, current director of the board here and on the membership committee, and currently looking for work.
Hi, I'm Arlene Soyland, Soyland Management Company, and I have 2 guests today. This is Dee Swanheiser. She's with Green Belt Alliance. And this is Ann Morkel, who is the ED for the Laguna Foundation.
Good morning, Charlie Rodriguez, Mid-State Construction.
Jeff Owen, the Exchange Bank, Commercial Lending and Affordable Housing Finance, and a guest of Paul Young's.
I'm Katie Dillwood from Christofferson Builders.
Carrie Chambers, Community First Credit Union.
Dave Kraft, W Real Estate.
Karen Schneider, Sonoma State University.
Hello, Mark Stapp, Sonoma State University and Santa Rosa City Council.
Conrad Fernandez, Fidelity National Title.
Sarah Avancino, Fidelity National Title. Diva Marie Proto, Sonoma County Clerk, Recorder, Assessor, and Registrar of Voters.
Good morning, Ed Lerma with the Mitota Food Park.
Tony Spisman with 707 Promotions, and I have 2 guests today. I have my new employee, this is Crystal Vega, and going along with the theme of bringing family, this is my son Marcus Navarra.
Haley Bly with Boys and Girls Clubs of Sonoma Marin.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Duramalar, the Executive Director of the Robert Ferguson Observatory.
Good morning, Gabriel Cox, Personal Perspective.
Good morning, Tracy Emmerich, Fleet Solutions Group.
Brian Barrett, Financial Advisor with New York Life.
Good morning, David Brown, Adobe Associates, Civil Engineers and Land Surveyors.
Good morning, Melinda Rivera with Pacific Gas and Electric.
Good morning, Jeff Woods with Santa Rosa Police Officers Association.
Good morning, everyone. Joe Dietzen, Western Market Bank.
I'm Ben Wickham with Burbank Housing.
David De Los Santos with TLCD Architecture.
Michelle Whitman with the Renewal Enterprise District and the Red Housing Fund.
Good morning, Mike Martini, Taft Street Winery.
Siobhan Griffin with Umpqua Bank.
Ramsey Brown with Exchange Bank.
And Danny Sheehan with Friends of Smart.
Brian Lang, Real Estate Services.
James Corzo, Corcoran Icon Properties.
Jason Lee, Sonoma County Office of Ed, and didn't even notice Brian sitting way in the back.
Jefferson Alvarez, WSI Smart Marketing.
Good morning, Tawny Tisconi, Tisconi Event and Management Solutions, and the CEO of the Sonoma Marin Fair.
Paul Yeomans, Exchange Bank.
Todd Mendoza, Coldwell Banker. Carl Service, TLCD Architecture.
Justin Hunter, Holly Construction.
Jared Paul with PTA.
And I think there's a couple guests who did not give me a card. Yeah, did I get everyone?
Thank you, Chris. Well, it is my pleasure to introduce our discussion on homelessness, the program panelists. Chris Cabral, CEO of COTS. Come on up. Jenny Lynn Holmes, CEO of Catholic Charities. Gerard Giudice, Roanoke Park City Council Member, District 3, and owner of Sally Tomatoes. And Jenna Garcia, City of Roanoke Park Housing Manager. And then Tom Schwedholm will be joining us for the Q&A, to moderate the Q&A, the former Santa Rosa City Mayor and former Santa Rosa Police Officer. Please help me welcome Chris, Jenny Lynn, Gerard, and Jenna.
All right, good morning. So I have the privilege and honor of getting to have an entire 5 minutes to tell you all the context of homelessness in Sonoma County. So bear with me because I might be going fast, and we have a lot of data and a lot of things we want to bring forward. So first, I just want to say that I'm very happy to be having this conversation. Homelessness is one of the most complex issues facing our nation. It's also one that has a lot of controversy and blame. And what's really important is that we make sure we get aligned and we understand that turning on each other is not going to help. We have to work together to make this happen. And as you heard from our partners at PEP Housing, we each have a piece of the puzzle. And that includes every community member, every business owner, every nonprofit, every housing provider, and even more than that. So I'm grateful to get to talk to you a little bit about it. So first off, we're going to talk about the data. What does homelessness look like here in Sonoma County? So on any given night, there's about 3,000 people experiencing homelessness in Sonoma County. So last night, there were 3,000 people without a home. Of those 3,000 individuals, 61% are unsheltered. So we have an extraordinarily high unsheltered homeless population here in our own backyard. And so when you woke up this morning thinking about the cold and getting ready to head over this way, there were people who tried to survive in that all night long. And it's an extreme crisis and major issue. When we also look at the numbers, you can see our peak was actually in 2011. And so we actually have made a movement in the right direction on reducing homelessness. Now, normally when I say that to organizations and to community members, that's when I start getting tomatoes thrown at me, because the public perception of homelessness is that it has not gone down. And the reality is the public part of homelessness hasn't. When we look at the numbers of homelessness and where we're making a big movement is on the individuals who are in our shelters and individuals who are coming in who are experiencing homelessness, for maybe the first time or for a short period of time. Where we're watching the numbers not increase or not decrease, but actually increase and actually become more publicly visible is our unsheltered population. So when you come into, for example, one of our shelters and one of COT's shelters, you'll probably notice potentially people you see working and where you go grocery shopping or working where you possibly just maintain your daily business activities. A lot of the individuals in shelters are working, are community members or people you probably wouldn't even know. But the unsheltered, very visible part of homelessness is not necessarily having the same impact, and I can talk a little bit more about why and where we're going with that. When you look at homelessness, you can see on the left some of the subpopulation data. So we break it down by families, transitional aged youth, and so on and so forth, veterans. Those areas we're actually watching decreases in homelessness. Where we're watching the increase happen is our chronically homeless population. And what does that mean? Chronically homeless means someone's been experiencing homelessness for a very long period of time, and they have one or more disabilities. And so when we think about what is very visible on the streets in our community, that's typically the chronically homeless population. And that's where the numbers have skyrocketed over the last few years. And the reason why is they need more intensive services, and they're often hard to kind of engage with because their mental health has potentially deteriorated to a point it takes a lot of intervention and a lot of services to get them into being able to find housing. So there's a lot of work to be done, and we're going to talk about a couple of ways that we're trying to do that in our community through a few case studies. And lastly, I'll point out that and part of the homeless population that is experiencing disabilities is high. This number shows 42%. but I think that number is likely higher. This is self-reported data. We know when we're working with individuals, they have one or more major disabilities, and even if they came into homelessness with zero, the experience of homelessness rapidly increases the opportunities, which is very sad, not in a good way, becoming mentally ill or having some sort of substance abuse issue, or both of those things growing at a rapid pace. And I was just talking with Janet right before this about she watched somebody herself on the street who within 3 months was almost unrecognizable. So that's what we're talking about. The experience of homelessness escalates these issues in a very tremendously, horribly impactful way. So we're going to talk to you about what we're trying to do with that in different parts of the community, but I want to just kind of echo a couple of things. When you're sitting here and hearing some of these opportunities, you know, if we want to really get serious about reducing homelessness, we need to follow, you know, the evidence. So first off, we need to provide funding resources commensurate with the need and the emergency. Hugh and I have had this conversation many a times. You know, we've got 3,000 people experiencing homelessness in Sonoma County, about 61% are unsheltered. I have 6 outreach workers. 6 outreach workers to reach out to 2,000 people. So the need, the increase of funding resources is something we need to look at, and can't just keep being government. We need to look at philanthropy. We need to look at all of us coming together and making sure that we are making an impact with the resources needed with the emergency that's rising. We have a growing aging population. That is probably one of the things that is really hard to watch, is we're watching people age in the experience of homelessness. And that was where we saw a significant increase in the data as well. We also need to look at trauma-informed solutions with accountability infrastructure. And what that means is knowing that the individuals we're working with are experiencing major trauma, and we need to be informed on how to provide care. But we also need to look at the fact that this affects our businesses, our communities, our parks, our neighborhoods, and there is accountability in all areas of community and life that we need to also hold a place for as well. And we need more housing for all income levels. It was great to hear about all the different housing providers here, because we need housing. And it can't just be affordable, we need market rate housing. We need people to be able to move within the housing infrastructure. And we also need to look at, every time we provide an emergency shelter bed, there's a 1-2-4 model. So remember this, 1-2-4. Every emergency shelter bed that we provide, you also need to build 2 permanent housing beds and 4 homelessness prevention resources. Because if we're only building an emergency shelter, we're not solving homelessness. We're just managing it in place. And so we have to look at building the entire system, throwing more opportunity into the housing services, and preventing people from becoming homelessness in the first place. But most importantly, we have to work together. And this is something in my 14 years of doing this work, we really need to make sure that we understand we all want to see homelessness reduced. You know, we're up here because we believe that we can do it, but the work is very hard. It's very controversial at times, and to have lasted 14 years in this job is hard because homelessness is a very complex issue. But at the end of the day, homelessness is not caused by one single thing. It's the failing of multiple systems that are underfunded or have too much bureaucracy, whether it's mental health, substance abuse, homelessness, all these systems. And at the end of the day, it's a person in the middle and a community that wants to make sure that we are addressing the community impacts of homelessness, which starts with making sure the individual is getting the care they need. So I'm really excited to be able to share a couple of case studies as we walk through this time together. And again, we're going to teach you how to solve homelessness in 30 minutes, apparently. That's our timeline. So I'm really honored to get to introduce my colleague, Chris, who is the new CEO at COTS, who's been a vital partner for us in this work. And she's going to share a little bit about hers, and then you'll get to hear from myself and then the City of Rohnert Park. So turn it over to Chris.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Chris. Thank you, Jenny Lynn. I've been on this job a whole 2 months already, so if I stumble, please don't blame me. There's a bottle of champagne up here. Nice and early. Let's talk a little bit, let me see if I can get this work, about the Housing First model. So who has heard about the Housing First approach? So about a third of you. So Housing First really is an approach to solving homelessness that focuses on the hierarchy of needs. So if somebody is unsheltered, if they're experiencing homelessness, the first thing that person needs in order to address all of the other barriers to homelessness is a shelter. right? They need to be inside, they need to feel safe, they need to have access to food. Without that, it is really, really difficult to ask that person to start focusing on job readiness, to attend medical appointments, all of those other barriers that are in the way for somebody who is currently experiencing homelessness to get them into permanent housing. So Housing First really focuses on first getting someone into shelter so that services providers can really access their other needs and address their other needs in solving homelessness. It also really values individual choice. So if you're working with somebody who is unsheltered, their needs may be very complex. They may have, as Jenny Lynn talked about, experienced extreme trauma in their life. And if you try to force someone who's experienced homelessness for 10 years into a program that is a very high barrier to entry, they have to be sober, you have to have a job, all of these different things, it's not going to be successful. You have to meet people where they are, value their individual choice. Where do you want to live? What does that look like for you? What does self-sufficiency look like for you? The answer to that is going to be different for me than it would be for somebody who has experienced homelessness for 10 years. So really valuing where that person is, what their choice might look like down the road, is the Housing First approach. There's a couple of ways that our community and other communities are doing this. One, many of you are very familiar with, that is permanent supportive housing. So we're going to talk a lot about that today and some different projects that are being developed in the community. Permanent supportive housing allows people who are experiencing homelessness to get into permanent shelter, a low barrier to entry, something that has changed over the last 5-10 years is shelters, units, providers. We've really ditched the idea of you have to be sober to come in, right? That is a huge barrier to entry for this population. So we want all of you to know that you don't have to be sober to access services. There is a lot of substance use disorder in this community, and really helping someone come in and engaging with them, understanding how they got to the place where they are, and offering services through their journey helps them really want to access services in their own way on their timeline. Permanent supportive housing, there's a lot of great units in the community. We'll talk more about that. But there are wraparound services offered for these folks getting into permanent housing, whether that is case management, help accessing healthcare appointments, on-site clinical services, transportation throughout the community. How many of you have navigated government systems to try to get something like food stamps, SSI? I'm a veteran trying to navigate VA services. And I know what I'm doing. It's still really hard. So helping these folks navigate those systems is a huge benefit for them to help them develop self-sufficiency over a long period of time. And it's also permanent housing, which is much different. It's much less stressful for this population. Has anybody here visited a shelter? A handful of you. That's great. We welcome you to join us for a tour anytime. We would welcome that. I think it kind of brings a perspective to folks that maybe they don't see out in the community. But permanent supportive housing really eliminates that fear that people have in shelter, that is my time coming up, how am I going to find housing, where am I going to go? So permanent supportive housing is very, very effective. You can see on the slide 95 to 98% of people who are placed into permanent supportive housing, which in the industry we call PSH, still remain there after 12 months. And that is extraordinarily successful for this population. Rapid rehousing, we refer to it as RRH. I won't do that here again because I know it's confusing, but that is short-term rental assistance and supportive services, really tailored to a wide variety of individuals experiencing homelessness. It is also very effective, but it's not as effective as permanent supportive housing because it's for a shorter period of time. There is funding for both of these programs, but as Jenny Lynn said again, we need more. All of you now know that there's 3,000 people on any given night experiencing homelessness, and to take someone from chronically homeless to self-sufficient takes the work of 10, 15, 20 different partners, thousands of hours of employee work, and thousands of hours of work on behalf of the individual that we're serving. So it is not as easy as picking someone up off the street and putting them in an apartment and saying, good luck. It is not effective, and there's a misconception about that in the community, right? So if you had a unit for every single unsheltered person in this county, you would still need to fund services for those folks. So I hope that you take that back to people that you talk to this issue about, so that there's a little bit better understanding of the complexity of these issues. And I will pass it to Gerard, right? Next.
Actually, we're both going to do this.
Oh, excellent.
Let's just get this out of the way so I don't get too tempted. So I'm going to start this off and then I'll let Jenna bring it home. So we're all leaders. All of you are leaders. And in my estimation, leadership is comprised of 3 qualities. Wisdom, knowing the right thing to do. Character, you have to go about it in the right way. And then effectiveness, you got to get it done. And so when I was elected and became mayor in 2021, I did my own, as we all do in our businesses, we do our SWOT, right? And we take a look at what our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats are. Concurrent with that, we took the council into a session to develop strategic goals. In real time, the homeless count comes out toward the end of January, and we've got a problem, Houston, a real problem in Rohnert Park. Homelessness is up very high. And so what do? We're going to move forward, and with the understanding that the only path forward that is not marred with judicial issues, with the Boise decision, etc., is supportive housing. That is the only path forward we have. So the city does an inventory of all its properties, and we decide we're going to apply for something called Project Home Key. Rohnert Park was fortunate, and Jenna's going to talk about our Home Key application and how we did it in Rohnert Park. We applied for a $14.6 million grant. As we go through this process, right, all of the discussion on homelessness is a serenity meditation until you get to the point of where do you locate this. And then you get the tomatoes thrown at you and the disruptive council meetings. But as an elected official, you have to support your staff, you have to support your community, you have to support your businesses, and so you need to move forward diligently to solve this problem. That's what we do in business, right? We solve problems. I don't want to be right, I want to be happy. My businesses want to thrive, my residents want to thrive, and those people who need that care, we need to get it to them. And so we went through this entire process and we found a really good site that we call Labatt Landing, and it is 60 supportive units that houses about 70 people right now. And I'll let Jenna talk a little bit about that project and how we did it.
Thank you, Gerard. Thanks, everyone. So yeah, speaking a little bit about Labatt Landing, as Gerard already mentioned, this is a project that provides supportive housing, specifically interim supportive housing, because we recognize that the streets cannot be the waiting room for the non-existent or wholly insufficient permanent supportive housing that we simply don't have in our community. You heard today from PEP Housing and from my colleagues here at Cox and Catholic Charities that there's simply not enough housing with the right services to get folks off the street. If we could get 2,000 people off the street today, we would. And in places where housing is not so much of a challenge, in other states in particular, you don't see the amount of homeless population as you do in California. So we recognize that we need somewhere to help these folks, especially chronically homeless folks, those long-time homeless folks with disabilities, largely seniors, be able to get off the street, to stabilize, to have a safe place to live and sleep, close the door, etc., while they're working on getting their documents in order and whatever else they need to move on into permanent housing. So Labatt Landing is part of that solution. It's not the final answer. Even having a lot more Labatt Landings isn't the final answer because we need the throughput, but it's a really key part of that bridge in helping people get off the streets, get out of the most horrific conditions, and then move on with their lives to move into permanent housing. So Labatt Landing is located on city-owned land, and you can see from the picture here, this is kind of an aerial view of Labatt Landing, 60-unit interim housing, meaning it's a short-term housing moving through to permanent housing. This was built using modular units. This is the final project. But, you know, just I think 3.5 months before this was taken, this was a blank slate. This was an empty lot. We actually, you know, got our application in October of 2021, and you know, basically 1 year later, this thing was built out, which is truly remarkable, and it was absolutely insane. Anyone in the development world knows that this timeline is ridiculous, but we were able to get it done because this is such a priority, and this is such an urgent need. Here's another kind of close-up picture. What you can see here, this is one of the little outdoor hallways. Each one of these is an individual, non-congregate room for each individual person or couple. There's 60 units total. 12 of those are ADA, so accessible for people with disabilities. They also accommodate couples, which there's a fair amount of folks living outside that want to be inside with their partners. They were also able to bring their pets with them. They were able to bring their property with them. And non-congregate's a little bit of one of those terms that we use in the industry. But what that means is that they're not in a big dorm-style room sharing a bunk bed with 100 other people. There's a lot of folks living outside who that's just not going to work for them, and they will never accept it because it doesn't work for them. So we designed this program to work for folks that are living outside, that you know, and be able to meet them where they're at. I think Gerard mentioned when we first moved people in this past October, there were about 70 people there because there were a fair amount of couples. To date, we've served over 74 individuals through that program, I think at least 4 of which have moved on into permanent housing already. 70% of these folks are people that are considered chronically homeless. So this is by and large a population, as Jenny Lynn and Chris have mentioned, that you know, there hasn't been enough services for, and the folks who frankly cause the most disruption for our community. So a couple of stats here. I think you know, Gerard already mentioned this was funded through a state home key program that allowed us to build this and then provided some operating funds ongoing. We're also getting some operating funds through the county and continuum of care. We did build it in 3.5 months. I don't recommend doing that to anybody else. These are modular units. 60 units of interim housing opened, you know, just a couple months ago. And just a quick highlight on this slide as to some of our partners. So, you know, City of Rohnert Park owns it and kind of drove the van, but in close partnership with Dignity Moves, who was our property project manager. So they oversaw the development of the project. They do this all over the state using modular construction, building interim housing for folks experiencing homelessness. And then Home First, which is our service provider that provides 24/7 intensive case management and services to help those folks transition out of interim housing and into permanent housing. And I'm going to hand it back to Jenny Lynn because we just like playing the musical chairs game up here.
Trying to keep it interesting because homelessness can be, I know, a little bit, so a lot of up and downs, but it's good. So I'm going to talk about Caritas Village. How many people have heard about Caritas? Oh my goodness, it makes me so happy. Thanks to Rebecca. She was in charge of kind of getting the word out, so we're very proud of this project. And let me just kind of talk really quickly about what it is, and more importantly, why we did it. So first off, Caritas Village is an entire city block in downtown Santa Rosa dedicated to ending homelessness and getting very serious about how we want to do that. It's a partnership with Burbank Housing, where we're going to have 128 units of affordable housing, paired with Catholic Charities Caritas Center, where I'll spend most of my time talking. This is an old picture, as you can see. This is the entire block in downtown Santa Rosa. This is right behind the Macy's Mall parking lot, if you're familiar with that. You can see the construction on the left is Burbank Housing's first phase, 64 units. It is actually it is way more complete, looking to open in July and moving the first 64 individuals in. You can see the other building on the right is our old family shelter, which is actually now gone, where we're going to be making way for the second phase of housing with Burbank. So we're very excited. Not only did when we originally were looking at what do we want to do with this, with our property, we knew we needed to look at being big and bold and innovative, and creating high-dense housing in downtown Santa Rosa, co-located with services, is going to, what I feel like, be a model that'll change how we do things, not just here, but hopefully across the state and the nation. So I'm going to talk predominantly about Caritas Center, because we opened late last year. I think we did our ribbon cutting on a Friday, and I became CEO on Monday, so I may have peaked, but that's okay, because that was a big weekend. But Caritas Center there was a lot of reasons why we need to do that. You know, there was the very logical reasons, right? We had aging and inadequate facilities. there was a lack of access. We were under-resourced for the number of people coming to our front doors on a constant basis. But when we really got down to it, we really wanted to say, how can we take all of our lessons learned as being a large homeless service provider in our community and do it better and do it differently and fast track getting people out of trauma and into housing. And we literally spent a ton of time really grappling with that question and looking at how we can do things from a much more innovative approach and a much more accessible approach. So we'll share what the programs are, and then I'm going to share the innovation. So this is quite a large project, as you can see. It's a 48,000 square foot facility, and we really have a variety of different programs. The first are kind of our family programs. So we have 192 bed shelter for families where the average age of the person who lives there is 12 years old. So when we talk about homelessness, we're not just talking about the person you see on the side of the street, we're talking about kids and families as well. And so this is the largest shelter for families experiencing homelessness in our community. And we designed it from a place that can really help not only the family thrive, but the kids thrive. We have children's programming, state-of-the-art security, and we're really excited. We have a partnership with Community Action Partnership to actually have an on-site Head Start, where the kids will get to be in early childcare, the parents can get off to their jobs, but the kids also get to catch up in their educational milestones to make sure that the disruption of homelessness doesn't hold them back from the big things that they need to accomplish. Because we know, particularly for our kids, we love them, but we don't want to see them there when they're adults, and education is the key to that. We also have in there our single adult programs. Back one. We have our single adult programs, which we have a 38-bed Nightingale Recuperative Program, which is for individuals being discharged from the hospital. We also have our drop-in center, which is for individuals who are literally living on shelter in our community, coming in out of the cold to get showers, to be able to get their mail, do their laundry, but most importantly, where we also have our outreach team based. So when they're ready to take that step, which sometimes we have an hour-long window, not even kidding, an hour-long window when someone is ready to take that step, and we are there to get them to a shelter or to get them to housing. But what's really revolutionary is we have an on-site medical clinic. And this was really important to us, was we often, when we have someone who comes in experiencing a mental health crisis or a physical health crisis, literally walking in with an open infected wound or some sort of major physical health ailment, our only option was to call 911, and then you get an emergency response, AMR, fire truck, sometimes law enforcement with SRPD. Now all we have to do is send them on an elevator to the second floor, and they can get all of the health care they need. So not only are we reducing emergency response need for this population, we're getting them on-site access, which is extraordinarily huge, because health and homelessness are very linked, and we need to do more in that arena. So having an on-site full-scale clinic, anything you could get from your primary care physician, these individuals can get. And we also have all of our housing services, which, as you've heard, is extraordinarily important. Now, I want to end with what's the innovation of Caritas. So the design process was critical. Kind of what are the things that have kept people out of services for years? So we built kennel space for dogs. We built childcare space for individuals. We have a quiet room. So if someone is experiencing a mental health crisis, we can put them in a place that is a calm, safe environment where then the City of Santa Rosa's In Response program can come and work with them one-on-one, not have to call SRPD or law enforcement and have them be involved. So that part was really critical, was the design process. It's also looking at, we need to professionalize these services. Charity isn't going to solve homelessness. It's so complex, mental health issues, substance abuse, very ingrained in what we're trying to do, where we need specialized individuals that work in this field and specialized buildings to help us. But most importantly, the story of Caritas is we didn't settle. Every time we were told maybe not or no, we didn't stop. And we had amazing partners that helped us get there, whether it was the City of Santa Rosa and helping us through the planning process, whether it was our amazing philanthropic partners, many of whom are in this room, like Providence. We kept going. And homelessness is going to need that tenacity if we're really going to tackle it. And for us, we know that we wanted to serve the people who are not just the easiest to serve, but the hardest to serve, because that's not only how we're going to help the individuals per our mission mandate, but it's how we're going to help our community, because we know this does affect our community. We don't want to lose the beautifulness of our downtown. We don't want to lose our parks and our neighborhoods. We want to be able to help them, but that requires us building the services meant for the population. So we hope you can come and see it if you haven't seen it already. We're up and running and all of our programs are moved in, but it's hopefully going to be a new resource, not only for individuals, but also that we can kind of model how and the why behind what we did there. So I'm going to let Chris talk a little bit more about their project, and then you're going to hear about some of the barriers we have to deal with as well around homelessness. So I promise we're nearing the end of that 30 minutes how to solve homelessness component. So I'll turn it over to Chris.
It's me again. All right, I will quickly cover this. I know we want to get to the Q&A session. Studios at Montero will be opening this spring. This is a development led by Burbank Housing. There's going to be 60 permanent supportive housing units, PSH, that we talked about a little bit earlier, serving the chronically homeless. So we're going to have seniors in there, we're going to have transitional age youth. It's going to be an amazing project with wraparound services on site, serving Petaluma. We are really excited about it, and just to give you, I wanted to give you kind of an actual story of someone that's going to be placed into this project. So we have a client right now at COTS. If any of you watch Crown 4, this was just on the news a few days back. He came to us through a referral from Providence Health into our recuperative care program. He is currently going through chemotherapy. He'd been experiencing homelessness for more than 10 years. He receives on-site health care, on-site case management, of course shelter and food every day. He is incredibly thankful, and he's going to be moving into Studios at Montero when it opens. And if anybody wants to come visit us, I promise he will talk your ear off all about it. He is incredibly excited. He's never had his own place, ever, in his entire life. He is a senior, and he is just talking to him. For me, it makes me emotional. I won't be emotional standing up here. I'll keep it together. But if anybody does want to come on site and talk to folks, we also have 7. Let me change this. Oh, no, I went too far. Oh yeah, it's the bottom. So the bottom picture on the right, that is People's Village. Those are little studio units that we have on property at COTS in Petaluma. That is interim housing, and they receive services from our building that's also co-located on site. We've got 7 individuals who are currently residing at People's Village who will be moving into Studios at Montero. The average time that those folks have experienced homelessness is more than 8 years. So these are people who have been homeless for a really long time, and this will be, for many of them, the first time that they've had an apartment in their adult life. So they're going to require those on-site supportive services to maintain that long-term sustainable housing. And all of them are really, really excited. We're excited to talk all about it when the project opens, and thank you to those here from Burbank Housing for doing such an amazing job on that project.
I'm back again. So I get to talk about the kind of less exciting part of being in the city world, but I think it's a super important thing for folks to understand from the general public. You heard Jenny Lynn at the beginning share data about how many people are experiencing homelessness, how the number's gone down from 2011, but how many of you have a perception that's the opposite? Homelessness feels like it's going up, it's bothering me more, people are more in our faces. And, I think there's a couple of reasons why that is the case, why, the perception is that homelessness is increasing in Sonoma County, and part of it is what Jenny Lynn and Chris have talked about, the acuity of the folks that are outside is going up. We're not doing a good job as a system of getting those folks off the street because it costs a lot more money. You don't get the return on investment that you do on lower acuity folks. And frankly, it takes a lot more work to get those folks inside. There's a lot of good efforts that we've all talked about that's going in that direction. The other piece of it here is visibility. we are seeing people a lot more. Back in 2011, we were in the middle of the recession. A lot of development was put at a complete halt. So people could be off the beaten tracks. They could be along train tracks, etc. What happened in the last 10, 15 years? The train was put in. A lot of development actually came back. People got pushed out of the areas that they were previously. And also, there were some serious legal decisions that changed the way that cities and jurisdictions as a whole are able to deal with homelessness from a visibility perspective. Pre the Boise decision, which is one of the things that's up on the screen right now, Martin versus Boise, which was a 9th District Court decision in 2018, cities could go in, law enforcement could go in and say, hey, you can't be here, you need to go somewhere else, someone didn't go, then you could go in and take all their stuff, right? You could remove them from the property if they were on public property. After the Boise decision, basically what that said is you can't make somebody move off of public property unless you have an actual shelter bed available to offer them. You've heard that we have enough shelter bed capacity in this county for about 1/3 of the people experiencing homelessness tonight. So do the math, we do not have enough shelter beds to go around doing clearings constantly, even when they are really, really disruptive to the community, to tourism, to businesses, etc. So, we are doing a lot of work to try to create more capacity, but adding 2,000 additional beds, 60 units at Levack Landing, is a drop in the bucket. It's a step in the right direction, but it's a drop in the bucket. So what I think, we really would like, to help the business community understand, and I think you've heard this from all of us, we're all working really hard to try to address this really complex problem that is going to take time to resolve. But, the issues that are most front of mind, most in your face, why is this person on my stoop when I'm trying to open my business? Why are they impacting my bottom line? Why are they impacting tourism, etc.? Really does come down to having insufficient resources to offer folks so that we can enforce no camping ordinances. We can't just go in and say you need to go if we don't have sufficient shelter beds available on the other end. And I won't get into all the details, the gory details here. You can read about it more if you want to, but COVID also added a layer of complexity to this because the Centers for Disease Control said that you really don't want to be moving people, especially when COVID was really bad, due to the potential for increased spread among a pretty vulnerable population. Just to give you an idea of the jurisdictions here locally that have been sued and had injunctions filed against them, it includes the County of Sonoma, City of Santa Rosa, Petaluma, Sausalito, Santa Cruz, Novato, Watsonville, and others. I don't have to tell anybody in this room the cost and amount of resources that go in to dealing with legal constraints and takes staff focus away from actually trying to resolve the problem, which is what we're trying to do here. So just wanted to kind of provide that context for folks that don't understand, why can't I just call the police and they will just come out and get rid of this person? Right, I'm looking at Tom over here. I get it. I would like that to be possible sometimes too, but there are all these layers of complexity to being able to resolve things right away, and we don't have the throughput to be able to put people into. I'm going to hand it off to Gerard to close us out and talk about how you can be part of the solution.
So I'm the closer, huh? Okay. Look, this is frustrating. It's frustrating for all of you. And I'm looking at probably 100 of the most influential business leaders in Sonoma County right now. And now's the time for us to show it. There were a group of business people that were brought on to help with the capital campaign and open up the Dream Center for SAY, and I served on the board there for 6 years. And it was such a distraction to suffer through the lawsuits. So much staff time, so much focus that we had to go other areas rather than focus on what? On the kids, right? And that whole discussion started with, oh, these kids, what are they going to do in the neighborhood, et cetera, and then 6 months into opening up, the Dream Center, can I bake them some cookies? Do they need warm socks? How can I volunteer? And so that's what I'm asking you all. How can you support? You can be part of the solution. Encourage your city councils. Advocate your state and your federal elected officials to help. Homelessness was a problem that was caused by the state of California. for many different reasons. And we can go back and we can say, oh, Ronald Reagan when he closed the mental health institutions, that. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we want to be happy. We don't want to be right. And we need to find a solution for this. We need to work together. In Roanoke Park, we have a local nonprofit called UFO, which is a strange acronym for Unsheltered Friends Advocate Outreach. And it's comprised of not only church folks, but business leaders who meet at a round table on a monthly basis and discuss solutions. They bring up those hard questions and they talk about them. And that's what you all have to do. You have to talk about it. If you go back into your community and you speak with all of the people that you know and say, listen, let's be part of the solution. Let's do this. We can do this in Sonoma County. It affects our businesses, our residents. And as Jenna said, the streets cannot be the waiting room for supportive services for residents who are suffering from mental illness. We have to address this as a community. So my plea is for all of you to get involved, to support in a positive, constructive way your local jurisdictions and their staff as they go through this process. It's not easy, but we can do this if we will all work together. Thanks.
Thank you, that was fantastic. And now we've got a couple of minutes for questions, and Tom Schwedholm is going to moderate our questions, and I'll hand the microphone over to you.
Great, thank you all for your feedback. It's so funny having experiences with all of you, except for Chris or Gerard. The first conversation we had, 4 or 5 years ago, it was like drinking water from a fire hose. All the information, and you stuck with it, so I appreciate you still being here. So the one thing I would ask here, for any of you that have been at community meetings dealing with homelessness, a lot of folks like to get up and start out with the editorial. As Janice said, this is a question period for these subject matter experts. So please, I want to request, ask the question without the editorial. So that would be my request. So if you have a question, raise your hand. I'll try to get to as many as we can. Thank you.
Hi. So from start to finish, when you have somebody who's agreed to permanent housing, on average, how long does it take to get someone into permanent housing in Sonoma County?
Far too long. It really ranges based on the individual's experience of homelessness. The longer someone's been homeless, the harder it is to get them out of homelessness and in. So one of the things that we want to do is catch people, well, we'd like to prevent homelessness, which we need to do a much better job at in our community. There's about 17,000 people who are considered imminently at risk of homelessness, and if those individuals become homeless, our system of care collapses. We're barely hanging on as it is. We cannot handle 17,000 people. So first we need to prevent, but on average, for someone who just falls into homelessness, our goal is to get them out and back into housing within 3 months. But the longer that people are in homelessness, the longer it takes. And it also depends on their acuity, which Jenna mentioned. Someone who has severe persistent mental illness, someone who has major physical health issues, that journey takes a lot longer. One of the things that has really been important for us is like the city of Santa Rosa, we have a safe parking program for people to stay in their vehicles. We have found that in the early stages, the biggest thing we're doing in that is just getting their documents together to even get housed. So when someone's experiencing homelessness, most of them don't have their ID or anything like that. You can't go into housing without that. And so while they're in our safe parking program, we can get them their driver's license. But how do we get a driver's license? You have to get a social security card. If they don't have that, you got to go to their birth certificate, which means we got to go back to where they lived, which could have been in another state. So we're looking at very long processes just to get them eligible to get an ID to even apply for housing. So that's the kind of work that we have to do. And so the journey is far too long right now. And that's where we need to really look at reducing homelessness.
Flipping this to a question instead of an editorial. Would you like to see the Press Democrat do a follow-up article on this? Seeing Mr. Sweeney sitting here, would you like to see the Press Democrat do a follow-up article on this whole presentation today, this wonderful presentation, and then follow up that perhaps weekly with keeping the positives in front of us instead of all the negatives? Okay? Thank you. Well, that's a question. That's a question. Is that
a trick? Yeah, so that's a trick question, right?
There is a lot of positive stuff going on. I will say that.
Yes, Dee Swanheiser. What is the relationship between somebody having a job and getting help? And then, I think I'll just leave it there.
I'll start. What I can say is a lot of the folks that we serve are not able to get jobs because of one or more disabilities. But there are a lot of job readiness programs out there, and as Jenny Lynn was saying earlier, some of that goes back to having appropriate documents. And to your earlier question, for COTS, it takes an average of 7 months to get people who are experiencing chronic homelessness appropriate documents to be able to get into the workforce, to get into housing. And for someone who has been experiencing homelessness for 5 years or more, it takes an average of 14 months to get them into a permanent housing solution. So it is a long period of time, and the higher acuity, the longer it takes. It also comes down to housing stock. You know, we have people who are ready and no housing stock to put those folks into. But to your question about job readiness, for those folks who are ready, willing, and able to get jobs, there's a lot of partnerships in the community, a lot of businesses that are really, really willing to work with us to get these folks into appropriate positions for long-term to increase their self-sufficiency.
You know, after we opened up the Bath Landing, I got a Facebook message from an old employee of mine. She had been a line cook for quite a while, and she had fallen on some hard times, and she made some bad decisions. And within a month of her moving into the Bath Landing and getting settled down, so she wasn't hearing the voices in her head, et cetera, she got a job as a line cook at Applebee's. And so that was a real success story. You know, down the street from Labatt Landing, we have IDEX. It's a life science company, and we took them over to Labatt Landing and showed them. And, you know, they said, we have all of these great, you know, entry-level jobs at IDEX paying between whatever it is, $18 to $27 an hour. And now you have, once you get these folks settled down, an available workforce just down the street where they can walk to work. So locating these places in areas where they can get services and then hooking them up with a local business community, right, to help. You know, we have an amazing success story down in Roanoke Park called North Bay Industries, and they make all of the internment flags for the Department of Defense, 7,900 of them made by people with disabilities from Roanoke Park. And so as business people, if we can go out and find these programs, and you can tailor some of your employment to assist some of these folks, we can go a long way into addressing that and truncating that whole process.
I'll just add something real quick, a special plug for JobLink, which is our American Job Center here in the county of Sonoma. They actually have a special working group to help employ people who are currently or formerly homeless. And I think in March, which we're now in, oh my goodness, you know, they're going to be hosting, later this month, they'll be hosting a job fair for folks currently and previously experiencing homelessness. They offer some support services and even will pay a portion of the salary for a period of time to employers that are willing to participate in that. Not everybody, in fact, a lot of folks, you know, may not be able to work while still living outside, but there are a number of folks who, once they're stabilized in shelter, you know, or even while they're living in their car, you know, are managing to hold down jobs. So that is a key way that the business community can help support folks in getting more stabilized so that they can get into housing.
Thank you for the presentation, and I hope you'll forgive my comment as a question. Homeless people tend to have a lot of stuff, whether it's things of value to me or things of value to them. Your presentation showed some really clean, sanitary places, which is awesome. But how do you deal with the stuff? And is that an actual accurate picture of what those places look like?
Yes, they are accurate pictures. We have a lot more, but the individual's belongings is not only a service issue, it's a legal issue. Chief Cregan can talk much more in depth about the legalities of what we need to do, but that's one of the things we had to embark on, was we knew if we wanted people to come in, right? We wanted to build these services not only to help the person, but to help our community, because as you heard, the legal system has complicated some of the things that we're trying to do around ensuring the community and the individual are safe. And so for us, we had to build the services because we can't necessarily fix the legal system, but we can build the services that allows there to be more opportunity to work within the legal constraints. We knew that if we wanted to target the individuals who are creating, major issues, whether it comes to belongings and so on and so forth, we had to build options for that. So at all of our sites, we have storage. At the Caritas Center and the Drop-In Center, we have 2 large courtyards. The front courtyard is dedicated predominantly to individuals' belongings. So they can come in, drop their things in an area that's secure, and then go in and get the services that they need. At Sam Jones Hall, which is the shelter actually here in Southwest Santa Rosa, you come to the site, we've got, I think it's 4 pods that are stationed there, 4 individuals' belongings, because we know that people won't leave without their items, and that keeps them out in the community and in our downtowns. But if we can make space for them inside of our facilities, they're more willing to come in, and it also helps with the community presence. So we do have those that you will see if you come to our site. You will see people's belongings because the people are with their belongings, and we don't split that up. You'll also see dogs. We changed our shelters to accommodate dogs. Sometimes I think there's more dogs than people, but it's an important part of, we need to make space for those things because it's a reality, and not facing the reality means it continues to be a problem in the community and the person that gets services.
And our final question is? I'm sorry, I'm the last one. Okay, maybe you saved the best for last or maybe not, but I would color this with as a 10-year-long fundraising leader for COTS. I have a heart for the homeless, but I believe that there's a very different posture between the desire to change and the power to change, right? Just because we have the desire to do something doesn't mean we have the power to do it. And as a local business leader and a lover of homeless people, I see people with the desire to change and not the power, and I see people that don't have the desire to change. So the hard question is, there's a lot of organizations and things happening trying to help the homeless find places to stay and enhance their life in a better way. What about all of the people that are living here homelessly that don't want to change and don't want to move and are lighting RVs on fire and making drugs in their RVs and putting up tent cities and refusing to leave? Are there any kind of organizations or people working to try and make our cities look less desirable for those folks?
That's a whole nother presentation, but I'm gonna just say really quickly. First off, the data says that 80% of individuals experiencing homelessness, between 80 and 85%, would take housing if housing were available. So the data actually shows that if housing were available, it is an option. Now, there isn't enough housing, and here's a whole nother, I'm gonna try not to open up this whole piece, but the psychology of an individual living on the streets changes. And someone who's been experiencing homelessness for an extended period of time moves into what's called a state of presentism. And it's a psychological shift that happens when someone's been in a long-term crisis survival situation for an extended period of time. And they learn to thrive within the experience of the crisis versus getting out of it, which what happens is their day doesn't become about getting a job, finding housing, and so on and so forth. It's how am I going to survive the night? How am I going to get my next meal? And that's what their day becomes about. Now, the most prevalent example is Stockholm Syndrome, and we all understand someone who's been in an extended period of crisis like that, you begin to normalize that experience, and when they are actually rescued, they have an attachment to the person who actually took their freedom because their psychology shifted in a state of survival to normalize that. So for people who are experiencing homelessness, that we often hear, I don't want services, I don't want this, sometimes it's because they have normalized that opportunity. Now that's where I think we do need to make some movement around the issues of, okay, we have services which we can offer you, but it also means you don't get to just stay here. So it's a balance of all those things, but it's also understanding that there is a shift that happens on the streets. What we hear as, I don't want to come in, it could be very true in the state and the moment that they're in. We have to understand it's a lot of trauma and crisis that has gotten to them that moment, and it's not as simple as a yes or no, I want services. And so that's the piece that we're struggling with. But at the end of the day, it is going to require us to make sure that we say, you can't be here because there are other options, because sometimes it's that moment of change that does get them to take services. But, you know, just like in the Stockholm Syndrome scenario where they, unless they're rescued, they're going to continue to live that way. And that's the same thing when we look at homelessness from my perspective, which is a whole other thing I could talk for an hour about that.
Great. Oh, go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, and I'll just to dovetail on that, and I appreciate the question, and I appreciate the very kind of blunt way you put it, because this is what we hear from the community all the time. And I think Jenny Lynn's exactly right. Not only is it the mindset of the individuals that are out there, it's who's offering services and how real are those services. You just heard that we have enough beds in this county for 1/3 of the people that are living outside. Do you think they know that? Of course they do, right? They know what's out there, they know what's available. A lot of people aren't willing to go into a congregate dorm style shelter. To be really honest with you, I probably wouldn't want to either if I were homeless. And that's what most of the shelter beds that are actually even available are. You know, when we opened up Labatt Landing with 60 non-congregate individual rooms with locking doors, almost every single person who took a bed in there was somebody who said no to congregate shelter before. So I think we need to be very careful when we try to paint a picture of these people are static and won't change their minds, because we change our minds. Everyone changes their minds. If you're a law enforcement officer in uniform offering something that has been offered and hasn't worked out for you in the past, it's a very different offer than here's an actual non-congregate bed in a new project that's opening up with a door that locks. And you know what? When people are offered real solutions, most of them accept it.
Thanks for that, Jenny. My last, before I get this back to Jenny, Gerard talked about what you can do. In Sonoma County, there's probably about 5 or 6 different strategic plans. The Continuum of Care spent a year, got a lot of feedback from probably some people in this room. The city of Santa Rosa did the exact same thing. You want to figure out how you can help, take a look at those strategic plans, because as I think Jenny Lynn said, evidence-based approach, this is the game plan that we are going to follow to end homelessness in Sonoma County. You could be part of that. Please look it up.
Thank you, Tom. And thank you to our panelists, Chris, Jenny Lynn, Gerard, Jenna. Thank you so much for joining us today. And then we'd just like to do the drawing for the bottle of champagne. You got that?
Thanks for Dawn.
Oh, okay.
Before you all leave, we need to do the drawing for the champagne. Elected officials in the room. Gerard Juche from the City of Rohnert Park. Victor McKnight from the Marquess Springs School District. Anna Tamayo from Damon Connolly's office, Marikisha Smith, the City of Santa Rosa, Brendan Sweeney, the office of Mike Thompson, our Santa Rosa Police Chief, John Craven, Mark Stapp, Santa Rosa City Council, and Deva Marie Proto. I had to write this one down, Clerk, Recorder, Assessor, and Registrar of Voters. So thank you all for coming. We have a fantastic program next month. Just one second. Please join us for the State of Education with Amy Carter, the Sonoma County Superintendent of Schools, on Wednesday, April 5th. Thank you all for coming. If you're a guest, I ask that you consider joining Sonoma County Alliance. Sonoma County Alliance is a business advocacy organization. Our strength is our voice, and our voice is our membership. Please join the Alliance and contribute your voice. Oh, who wants to do the drawing?